We stand at a critical juncture in the story of our humanity, and at the centre of it sits the governance of artificial intelligence. No longer science fiction, AI is in courtrooms, classrooms, financial institutions. It lives on our phones, it selects our news, and for better or for worse, it is being used to shape the world we live in, increasingly taking over spaces where we once used our judgment, our experience, the things that make us human. And we are left with the difficult question: how do we build a world that integrates AI in a way that doesn't hollow out the very things that make us human? Anthropologists tell us that the things that make us human are our extraordinary capabilities for cooperation, for shared meaning, cultural learning, imagination, and flexible judgment. Happiness studies tell us that our well-being depends on agency, on dignity, and the ability for us to shape lives of people that we have a reason to value. Yet AI, being used in core societal functions, increasingly operates in a way that crowds our agency, narrows our choices, and replaces our human judgment with black box algorithms. In exchange for what? Corporate efficiency and profit? We have replaced human judgment with AI technology. We have built systems that are based on black and white rules. But human judgment is not binary. The instincts that we have cannot be replaced by something that we can program into an algorithm. The instinct for a boss who finds an employee caught stealing at work to ask one extra question: why did you do that? That instinct doesn't exist in a system based entirely on rules. Because by the book, theft is grounds for immediate dismissal. Yet that boss, following their instincts to dig deeper, might uncover that their employee is a single parent struggling to support their 5 children, along with their elderly parent who's dying of cancer. That's a true story about a businessman in Ireland. A story that was only uncovered years after he passed away, when by chance his wife met the woman in that story. She told his wife that the £5,000 cheque that he wrote out of his personal checkbook changed the trajectory of her family. We have powerful human instincts. We know the right question to ask. We know the right decision to make. And we can only make these decisions when we move away from the type of binary thinking that technology is coaxing us into. When we sit in a room full of people having simultaneous conversations, and across the other side of that room, we hear a word that's important to us: our name, the name of the town that we grew up in, and our attention is redirected to that conversation. This happens because our brains have systematically been processing every single word of every single conversation that's been happening in that room. Our senses allow us to absorb vast amounts of information that feeds our intuitive decision-making in a way that, firstly, we do not understand, and secondly, we cannot program into an algorithm. In a famous experiment, researchers found that when they asked participants to gamble, the participants started to sweat about 4 seconds before picking up a bad card. Intuitively, their bodies had triggered a somatic response. Our bodies and our brains operate at a level that we do not understand. We have created structures and systems over a period of hundreds of years. And now, with the integration of technology, we have started to double down and reinforce these systems into our society. But human thinking is not black and white, and it cannot be replaced by these types of systems. Despite the importance of AI governance, many of our experts in this area, they sit in silos, our legal and our technical experts. And this lack of joined up understanding in this space has allowed for a narrative to be pushed through by organizations who profit from AI. A narrative that the governance of AI is bad for innovation, that it slows it down. But I would like to know which part of the regulations that are coming into force next year that they would like to change. Is it the part that requires that AI systems not be used for the mass manipulation and control of populations? Or is it the part that requires that when AI systems are being used for core functions in our society, like impacting democratic elections, that these systems have transparency, that they have performance metrics, that they are monitored over time to show that they are safe? How can we integrate AI into our society in a way that is trustworthy? Let me take you back to 2018, when the EU established a high-level expert group to answer this question. The group consisted of a cross-section of society, experts in policy, law, industry, and academics, and together they published the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. This included 7 principles to guide the responsible development of AI. These principles are referenced and laid the foundation for what later became the EU AI Act, which is the legislation in Europe that's currently being rolled out. How can you regulate something as fast-moving and broad as AI? Well, the EU focused on the utility of the system, and they identified a number of use cases by which, if AI was being used in a way that was unsafe, it would pose a risk to our fundamental rights. These include things like access to education and essential public services. And if systems are being used in this way, they're required to show documentation on how they were built, how they were trained. People who are deploying them have to have performance metrics in place, which are monitored over time. There needs to be transparency and human oversight. Yet businesses operating this space are pushing back at the basic requirements that we are trying to roll out in Europe. Many political and industry leaders have also bought into this narrative, this idea that governance is slowing down innovation. But innovation can happen in many directions. People talk about innovations that are happening in Europe, innovations that are happening in America, innovations that are happening in Russia. But innovation is not a singular track. There are many ways by which we can innovate. I would like to know which are the metrics or the KPIs by which we measure the most innovative countries. Is the country that's innovating best to have the happiest population, to have the lowest level of poverty and crime, the lowest levels of gun violence? Is it the country that's innovating to have the highest level of access to healthcare and education? Or do we ignore those types of innovations and decide that the most innovative country is the one with the most billionaires? We are so focused on the speed of our AI innovation train relative to the tracks laid out by other countries that we haven't noticed that those tracks are leading us off a cliff. There is another narrative around AI, something that's been explicitly excluded from the AI Act, and that is AI use in warfare. Some of the narratives around AI use in warfare are also pushed out by those companies that profit from them, people in the business of war. And one of those is that war is good for science and innovation. But again, innovation is not a singular track. There are many ways to innovate. And yes, we do get scientific discoveries from war because science comes from money and war is a business. In World War I and World War II, the company DuPont, they built bombs. They had scientists and chemicals and factories, and they discovered many things, including Teflon. Teflon was originally used for military applications, now widely used in non-stick frying pans. Now, had we sought to innovate to find the best type of non-stick frying pan, I'm not sure that we would have ended up with Teflon, a substance which for many years now has been correlated with causing cancer. We deserve to innovate intentionally for the good of the people in our society. We deserve better than the leftover innovations from the minds of warmongers and greedy tech CEOs who have showed consistently a lack of integrity and a weakness in the morality of their characters. There's a number of changes that are happening outside of the area of AI governance. So Whilst we are trying to make changes around governing existing structures that are in place, over the past 20 years, what we've seen in this acceleration of technology and how it integrates into our lives, the arrival of the smartphone, mass use of machine learning, and now the arrival of large language models. The way that we've structured this into our society has come out of a specific group of people. So we could have built technology to do anything. We could have focused our energies of the past 20 years to solve many problems in our society. When we create technology or any system or structure, we do so from our own perspective. Every decision we make, from the utility of that technology to the design, the build, how it operates, inherent in it is us, our morals, our thoughts, our values, our priorities. The people who have built the technology that shaped the world, that holds their priorities, their values. And those are not in line with the greater populations that are impacted by those technologies. The unrest that we feel in the world right now is a direct consequence of this. There's another change happening due to the cost of building technology lowering. So because of AI, you can now build technology for much cheaper. Prior to this, in order for us to get technology out into the world, hundreds of millions of euros of investment was needed. And to do this, you have to go through the golden gates of Silicon Valley. What we've seen in the last 2 years is a shift in the type of people who are founding companies. We can evaluate technology, we can try and measure standards, we can try and move towards things like ethics by design. But the greatest influential factor on a piece of technology and its trustworthiness and its impact is who has built that technology, because that holds their values and priorities. This shift towards a lowering barrier to entry of people to build technology is leading us into an era of the democratization of technology. And aside from the governance of AI, this is the single greatest change that we're going to see in the next 5 years, an exciting change. AI is often referred to as a disruptive technology. But true disruption is not technological, it is ethical and institutional. We have a choice. We can allow AI governance to drift into procedural box ticking, or we can truly embrace concepts like ethics by design. AI and technology cannot replace the human capabilities that have guided us for millennia, our intuition, our sense of balance, and our ability to find meaning and make good choices where logic alone falls short. The real challenge that we face is not how to govern AI, but how to build a world where technology complements, rather than erodes, our powerful and complex humanity. Thank you.